Okay, so this is the last set of lectures for the peripheral nervous system. The general senses are senses that have their receptors throughout the body. So, um, so places like the skin, organs, joints. Special senses have specialized receptors. Okay, and these are confined to the head. Okay, so we're talking about ears, eyes, nose, mouth. Sensory receptors are specialized cells or multicellular structures that collect information from our surroundings. The sensory receptors then stimulate a neuron to send an impulse to the brain. Sensation is the feeling that occurs when the brain is aware of the sensory impulse. So when the brain receives the sensory impulse, that's a sensation. And perception is how an individual views that stimulus. So it's the way the brain interprets the information. Perception and sensation are not the same. Okay. Different kinds of receptor types of these sensory receptors. You have chemoreceptors. Chemoreceptors respond to changes in chemical concentrations. Pain receptors. Pain receptors are also called nociceptors. These respond to tissue damage. Thermoreceptors, change in temperature. Chemoreceptors, we said, change in chemical concentration, brackets mean concentration. Mechanoreceptors respond to mechanical forces, and photoreceptors respond to light. So these respond to forces. Sensory adaptation is our ability to ignore things that are unimportant stimuli. It's not that we don't receive the signal, it's that we just ignore it. It involves a decreased response for a particular stimulus from the receptors. Eventually, the sensory impulses become less and may cease entirely. And then you need a stronger stimulus to increase or to start to feel it again. So think about sensory adaptation like if you, this morning, you put your socks on. And when you first put your socks on, you probably felt them. But for the rest of the day, you didn't really feel them. So your body adapted to it. It's also things like if you wear glasses and you put them up on your head, you may not even realize that your glasses are up there because you're no longer receiving that impulse that says, hey, there's something on my head. Other things like the fact that we can't always hear our heartbeat in our brain, even though we're getting that signal. And sometimes when you lay just right, you increase the stimulus, and then you can hear your heart beating in your head. All right, general senses, 3 general group. Exteroceptive senses, Exteroceptors. These are senses associated with body surfaces such as touch, pressure, changes in temperature, pain receptors. Visceroceptive senses are changes in our things like our blood pressure, blood vessels, and in taking in a meal, like taking in food, swallowing food. And then proprioceptive senses are changes in muscles and tendons, actions. The proprioceptive ones help us to define where we are in space. Okay, I would look at the table in your book for this material too, because it has a good table. That is on, hold on, I'll look at it. Table is on page 451, table 12.2. So it's page 451, table 12.2. So that has a good table to help you look at or help you understand these. Free nerve endings are the most common in epithelial tissue. Free nerve endings are mechanoreceptors, and they're also the simplest ones. So these are things that help us to sense like itching. So these free nerve endings. Tactile corpuscles are also types of mechanoreceptors, and they can help us detect the texture of something or if something's moving over our skin. So think about like, I don't know, spider crawling on you. Pacinian corpuscles are these lamellated corpuscles, and these ones detect changes in deep pressure, also vibrations. The warm receptors are the temperature receptors, but I'll put these over here. So warm receptors. We detect changes in or warm receptors 25 degrees Celsius, anything above 25 degrees Celsius. So anything greater than 25 degrees Celsius, which is 25 degrees Celsius is about 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And anything above, all the way up to 45 degrees Celsius, which is about 113 degrees Fahrenheit. And so this number right here, 113, this is why hot tubs are generally around 104 to 105, maybe 106, 107. But anything more than that, it's just going to feel really hot, and your pain receptors are going to kick in. So from 25 degrees to 45 degrees Celsius, the warm receptors are picking up the signal. Cold receptors go between 10 degrees Celsius to about 20 degrees Celsius. So that's 50 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so you can see that from about 68 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit, we don't have any receptors, really. And a big part of that is that's kind of where we're comfortable, and that's where our body, would be like room temperature. We keep room temperature around 68 degrees, And we're not going to get a lot of signals. Our body's comfortable there. Okay, pain receptors are the ones that pick up anything below 10 degrees Celsius to above 45 degrees Celsius. Okay, that's why really cold stuff hurts. Oh, referred pain is usually due to a common nerve pathway. So, for example, your liver and gallbladder have a common nerve pathway with this area of your neck. And so if you have a problem here, you may feel it there. It's also why things like the heart, when someone's having a heart attack, their left arm may hurt or their left jaw because of the referred pain. And that's also different for different people and different between men and women. The other thing I wanted to say about this was that pain receptors are the only thing in the viscera that produce an actual sensation. Normally your small intestine, you don't feel food moving through your small intestine. But if something happens in there and it hurts, it's causing pain, you get that sensation. It's hard to localize pain receptors, and which is why sometimes that pain ends up being referred pain, feeling like it comes from some other place in the body. All right, pain nerve pathways, you've got acute fibers. Acute fibers are called A delta fibers. They're thin, myelinated fibers. Okay, these A delta fibers cause signals, impulses to be conducted rapidly. And so with these you get sharp pain and it's well localized. So it's easy to tell where it's coming from. Chronic pain fibers are C fibers. They're thin and unmyelinated. And remember, because of that lack of myelination, they're going to conduct their fibers more slowly, and it's difficult to pinpoint. So these are often dull, aching pain sensations. All right, stretch receptors are mechanoreceptors. Stretch receptors, so they send information to the spinal cord and the central nervous system about our body position, length, tension of our muscles. And the muscle spindles are in the skeletal muscles. And these are, so the muscle spindles are in the skeletal muscles right here. And these ones are more stretch receptors. The Golgi tendon organs are found in tendons. So here's a Golgi tendon organ. I guess that's good enough for that. All right, and then there's that table 12.2 we talked about. Stop here and we'll do the next part.